Hello everyone, welcome back. I am glad you're here. So today we have a brand new Uberti 1851 Navy in this box here. Now I've only cracked it open. You can see I accidentally tore the cardboard right there. But I haven't done anything other than take a quick peek to make sure it's like what I ordered and then close the box back. And I brought it right in here to the desk and we're going to crack this thing open together. Now this isn't going to be an unboxing per se. What I really hope to achieve in this video is to show you what I do to get a new percussion revolver set up. It's not as simple as take them out, lube them up. There's a lot more involved, unfortunately. You know, as much as I love Uberti, they're a great brand. There are some things you got to be aware of. Sometimes they need just a little bit of tuning. Sometimes there's some burrs that got to be, gotten rid of. And then the big thing is they come absolutely soaked in oil, and so you got to get them clean inside and out and really get them set up from that standpoint. So that's what we're going to do in this video. I'm just going to show you what I do, walk you through the process, and I'll try to keep this as brief as I can, but here we go. So obviously you got the box, pretty uninspiring box, not gonna lie. Paperwork, which I always give these booklets to my little boy, just because what little boy doesn't want a catalog full of cowboy guns. I think the last one I gave him of these, he hung on the wall, which was pretty cool. And here we are, 1851 Navy. We'll get the box, send this across the room. See ya. So these things come in these plastic bags, and they are soaked in oil so that they can sit on a shelf and survive through shipping. So it's a preservative, but it's just disgusting and smells bad. And so I got an old shirt here that we're going to use. So it's always fun to open up a new 1850, or not 1851, but a new percussion gun, because the case hardening, the wood, they're all a little different. And so it's always a little bit of a neat experience opening these up and seeing kind of some of the character that's already on the gun. Here's the first thing that we're going to cross our fingers for. I really hope I didn't get the Uberti Gorilla. Now, if you guys don't know, there's a phenomenon that exists in Uberti where there is somebody there at their factory who has not been properly trained on how to utilize a screwdriver. And this person cranks the screws down so tight, it's offensive how tight they are. Like, they're way too tight. So we're going to take this thing apart here in a second and just see if we got the Gorilla. It's only happened to me once, but it's not any fun when it does. All right, so got the bulk of the junk oil off. And this one's not the worst. My last 1851 Navy came absolutely drenched. I mean, literally dripping off the heel of the pistol. All right, so initial impressions. The gun looks really good. Very subtle case hardening. It's not super, there's not a huge variation in color. I do have some scratches on the base of the back strap on the brass. Some people would be really bothered by that. I am not. The wedge fit feels exactly like my other 1851. The action is gummy, but we're going to fix that. So, good looking gun. So the first thing I want to do, and I know it's very unceremonious and probably looks terrible, but I just dumped my whole cleaning kit out on my left here to take this guy apart. And that is my Percussion Revolver cleaning kit. All right. Take off the barrel. Bore looks good. We got our cylinder. Cylinder looks good. I don't see any scratches on the cylinder. Sometimes on these cylinders you can see some scratches right here where the bolt drags. This one doesn't have that, at least not yet. Okay, so this is what I mean by burrs. Just running the hammer, there's something sticking. You can see that hammer the way I'm having to push it forward. So there's a burr. There's something going on. We've got to fix here. So, all right. First screw is not gorillafied. Let's see if we got lucky on the next one here. Oh, please don't be gorillafied. Not bad. Okay, I don't think we got the gorilla, guys. I think we're going to be okay. Yeah, no gorilla today. Now, as I always say, I really recommend you use the right screwdrivers. If you go on Amazon and look up Grace USA Peacemaker screwdriver set, that's what this set of screwdrivers are, and they are made just for the 1851, 61 Navy, 1860 Army, 62, the 1873 Single Action Army. All those screws are the same sizes, and these drivers are made just for those sizes. All right, we're going to we're going to unlock the tension on the spring here. Now, I should be talking through what I'm doing a little bit better, but essentially when you're taking these guns apart, what you want to start with is the screw on the bottom here. And you want to undo it just like 4 turns, just to reduce the tension on the bottom. The next 2 is you want to take out are these 2 in the back. You want to drive those out, and then you take out everything all together, and your back strap comes out. And then what I do is I take those 3 screws and just drop them in the grip right there and set them aside so that I know that's what they're for. I don't want to mess those screws up. Then the next thing you're going to do is loosen this big screw that puts tension on your hammer spring. And so you can just reduce that tension. You don't have to take it off. You can if you want to. I usually don't. Once the hammer is a little bit freed, it doesn't have that spring tension, then you can do these 3 on the bottom. So I should have mentioned that before. My apologies. But there is a specific order that you have to do these in. Now, is the gun going to like fall apart and break if you don't do them in that order? No. But you can wear the gun out just a little bit quicker. You can beat it up a little bit if you don't be really careful how you take these things apart. And when I say beat it up, we're talking like the screws are going to get beat up. Worst case scenario, you're going to strip something out in the frame, and then that's a bad day right there. For the back strap, I want to take the 3 for the trigger guard, and I'm just going to set them beside it. And I want to keep everything in little sections here so I'm organized. All right, so now we got the frame. Now, right now, I'm just checking the arbor. And the arbor is this big rod right here. That's what holds the whole gun together. Arbor's not loose. That's good. The first thing I like to do is loosen this screw right here, which is your trigger springs. Or trigger spring, rather, singular. Okay, so we're going to take this guy out. And the reason is as I start taking out these other springs, or these other screws, everything else is going to be captured by this spring. So I just want to get that guy out of the way. Okay, now I can start taking the screws out of the frame itself. And this one is set up just perfectly in terms of like how tight everything is. When you put these guns back together, these screws do not need to be tight. Like literally just where you start to feel it grab and then a slight twist, barely hand tight. They're not going to creep themselves out. You know, the gun's not going to disassemble while you're firing if you don't crank these things down real tight. And the reason I say that is because, you know, the joke I often say is that uberti screws are made out of peanut butter. They're just not, they're not like super heavy duty screws. They're not like grade 8 screws or something, right? So you got to be a little gentle with them. Be careful with the threads, be careful with the heads. And, you know, and also as these guns get really dirty and hot when you shoot them, they're going to want to seize up. Now there's some things you can do to help with that, prevent that. We'll talk about that in a minute, but all right, so we got all our screws out. Now the hammer is going to come straight down. And our hand right here is going to be attached. Okay. And then our bolt. Might have to help it out there. There we go. Okay. Very nice. All right, so first thing we're going to do is I'm literally just going to wipe down the inside of the frame. Now, what you can do, you can use some like oil solvents if you want. I've had this stuff for forever. And I don't like frog lube. This stuff's ridiculous. But the frog lube solvent is actually quite good. So I use this stuff, and it's very gentle. It's not super caustic and acidic or anything like that. It's just very, very gentle, enough to break up those oils and get you to wipe them free. In fact, you're going to be halfway convinced that it's just water. It's very, very gentle. So I like to spray that stuff on. And it's also very watery. It's not thick, so it's nice because it'll cause everything to run off. And the other great thing, I know I'm going on and on about it, but another great thing is it's not like some of those gun solvents where you spray them and they get you high if you're in a closed-in room. This has no scent. Again, it's like water. The ever-useful Q-tip, I just like to drive it in these screw holes and clean those out. You can also take a Q-tip and just pull half the cotton off, and then it'll fit in that screw hole really nicely. It's one thing that I use a lot is Q-tips. I go through, I don't even want to talk about how many Q-tips a month. It's probably thousands. All right, so at this point in the video, you're going to notice I will have sped things up. I'm not going to have you watch me do every little piece and part because this video will be 2 hours long. But basically what you want to do is just go through and wipe everything down. Particularly anything, like these screw threads. Again, I'm going to spray some of this solvent on there. I want that old oil gone. And once you get everything cleaned up, everything's dry, then we can go to the next phase. And we'll go ahead and cut to that point. All right. Dang it. The gorilla has struck. All right. So one thing you want to do while you're getting all these things cleaned up is you want to take the nipples out of the cylinder. Now, I recommend, in fact, I'm going to dadgum demand, you go and get a Pedersoli nipple wrench. Don't use the cheap ones, the CVAs and all that. The Pedersoli is hard forged steel. These are dang near indestructible. And what can happen is if you have a really weak nipple wrench, you're going to go to take off nipples that are on too tight, and the wrench edges right here are just going to chew. They're going to just get destroyed. So I have like 4 of these. They're expensive. They're like $35, almost $40 for this little bitty wrench. But they're worth every penny. You will thank me later. But the gorilla has struck because these nipples are way too tight. So what you want to do when you run into these instances is, and this is why this nipple wrench is really valuable, you got these crossbars. You want to push down and push in as hard as you can on those nipples to relieve some of the pressure, and then slowly apply your twist. Oh, God bless it. So tight, man. Way too tight. Okay, I didn't destroy the nipple. Now, that is something I will tell you. In fact, I'll just go ahead and show you right now. This little parts box right here, this is just a bunch of spare parts for my colts, for my Uberti colts. I got screws, I got springs, hands, I've got spare nipples, I've got everything. These guns, I'm not saying they're fragile, but they can be a little fragile, so it's probably a good idea to have spare parts on hand. Oh, man. Dang you, Uberti gorilla. Something to break up that oil in these threads and get out the absolute freaking magnum red thread locker, or whatever they put in there, and get it off of your nipple threads. So now you guys got to see a taste of the Uberti gorilla. I genuinely don't know why that person still works there. I feel like one day I'm just going to be walking through the grocery store and I'm going to see somebody with a hat on that says, "I am the Uberti gorilla." And then we're going to engage in Mortal Kombat. I'm going to use some boar butter. And I want to go ahead and get that barrel seasoned. And this is something you want to do pretty regularly, in my opinion, on the bore, is make sure that that bore is lubricated. This is not like centerfire guns where, you pretty much run a bore snake through it and call it a day, right? You want to treat that bore kind of like an old iron skillet. You want to make sure that that thing's seasoned, and you want to make sure it's lubricated at all times, because a dry bore with these guys is no good, and that is what a patch looks like going through that bore. So it is pretty dirty still. Next item up, let's go with the cylinder. So the cylinder, same thing. I want to take my patches and my mop, and I want to just get those cylinders not quite as wet as the bore, because eventually we're going to have to put powder in those guys, and we don't want them wet. But what I also don't want is for them to just be bone dry. Okay, and same story here. It's going to come out brown because it's got that oil baked in there. All right, so next step is the nipples. So I'm going to take some of this stuff. This is Birchwood Casey choke lube, and I put, so little. In fact, I put so little, I've had this same bottle of choke lube since I was 18 years old. That's how long this stuff lasts. You do not need a lot at all. Like that right there is going to do 2 or 3 of them. So what I want to do is just rotate it. See how it's in the threads there? And I'm going to push that around just a little bit. And the reason is, so you got a couple options when it comes to the nipples. You can either crank them down like a moron and never get them off again, or damage the threads, or damage your wrench and all that stuff. Or you can just gently hand tight them and have some anti-choke seize stuff in there. And what happens is as you start shooting, that fouling and the heat and everything is actually going to freeze them in place. But you can get them out really easy, because this choke lube is going to protect your threads and keep them from getting completely consumed by that fouling. This is I don't know anybody else who does this personally, but I have found this to work really well for years. It protects your threads. The choke lube wipes off. You just don't have to thrash on the gun to get it to work. So, then I'm just going to thread them in there. And now look, okay, so right here, boom, I hit it, stopped, right? And now the threads are catching. All I'm going to do is go, boom, that's it, just a little twist. Once they start grabbing, just give it just a little bit of a push. So here we go, and it stops. That's it. Very little screw tension. And again, years I have been doing this. So if anybody's going to say, oh, those are going to come off, or you're going to do this, nope, they never do. And you know what? Here's the other thing. Even with heavy shooting, they're never loose. Not one time. I've never had these guns come loose. So, and here's the other thing you got to realize, man, is in what direction are they getting hit? Down. So it's not like they're going to unthread themselves with all that pressure being smacked on them. They hold in there just fine with just a little bit of torque. That's it. Okay, so the cylinder, we're going to call that done. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put in our bolt. And before I put it in, I'm just going to inspect it. I'm going to feel it. I don't feel any burrs. In fact, I can see some filing marks here. So it looks like somebody at the factory has already worked on this. Okay, so nothing sharp at all. Probably an unpopular choice here. I have a very old piece or a tube of Wilson Combat Ultima Lube grease. This thing's probably older than me. I got this from my dad's cleaning kit. He called it old, so it's old, but it's still grease. It still works. So on my internals, I put a sheen of grease on them, and here's why. I know so many people say, no, never use petroleum-based stuff on black powder. It'll cake, and it doesn't, guys. Not in the way I use it. So basically what I do is I want a sheen of grease on everything. And what this is going to do is not if, but when the black powder hits it, it grabs onto the surface of the grease and then you literally wipe it off. You don't have to scrub your internals at all. Now, if you shoot a lot and then don't clean your gun, and then go out and shoot a lot and then don't clean your gun, and you repeat this several times, then yes, the grease will burn up, dry out, and it'll tar. But if you clean your guns every time you go out like you're supposed to, that will not happen. Next, I want to look at the hand. The hand is always the one that needs some love. And sure enough, I found a burr right there. Okay, so I've never had an uberti that did not need some hand love. Hey guys, so I wanted to interject really quick. In the edit, I noticed I didn't explain something really crucial at this point with the hand. And I want to make sure you guys understand something you need to check while you're sort of deburring the hand. Essentially, if you look really closely, when I pull the hammer back, that hand extends up. Okay? See it move? This channel between the arbor, which is this pole, and the frame, you got to make sure that this hand clears that little valley there. Okay? What can happen, and in my case, what has always happened, is that hand's trying to protrude forward. It's just too big. It's very obvious to me the way these are manufactured. They're manufactured oversized. They do some fitting at the factory. You can tell there's always file marks on one side, and essentially they just get it to stick in there and they send it. They don't actually do a very good job of fitting it. So one thing you want to make sure of is that the right side and the left side of that hand are smooth and free, and that the hand also fits nicely all the way through there, sliding in and out very nicely. So I didn't explain that very well in the initial setup, but I wanted to interject and make sure you guys heard that. So I'm just going to take my file and just knock that burr down. Okay, there it goes. It's gone. Just enough to say it's gone. Okay, and really you can like very gently rub the file over the part. See how it's grabbing, and then now it's not. Now it's grabbing. Now it's not. I'm just really knocking down all those sharp edges. I want to check out the hammer. Check out this little hook right here. No burrs. My sear edges feel really sharp. That's nice. All right, so right here, I'm actually going to take some Militech 1 and just lube either side of the hammer. Again, I don't have the problems that people report to have where, like, you put petroleum-based oils on these guns and they just cease to work. I haven't had that. So I'm going to take a little bit more grease. And this is something is a little hard to do. It's basically the back of this hand, the hand spring right here. I'm going to run some grease on the back of there and make sure it's on there good, because installing these things are a little bit of a pain in the butt. So I'm going to start the hand in this channel here. You see that right there? So you're going to have to push that spring down and get the hand started, and then push your hammer up. So what you can do is you take your brass punch and you reach in here, and you can actually see the hand from my angle here. You can see the hand right down in there. And what's going on right now, the reason it won't go in is the hand is popping out. And so what I want to do is just reach in there. See how I just pushed that and everything fell into place? Now it slides in easy. Now, same story here with the screws on the frame. So watch. I'm gonna turn. Boom. It bottoms out. Okay, I felt the threads grab. How much tighter do I go? This much. Just one little tug. This hand channel right here needs to be lubricated. That hand is going to be sliding in and out of that channel like crazy when you're running the action. It needs to be lubricated. The question is with what? Now, a lot of people will just straight up use boar butter. And basically, you can be generous with this stuff. So you can see it in there. I just shot a gob down in there. All right, so what I'm doing is on the front of the gun, I am just absolutely hosing the front of this port right here with boar butter. Where the hand pops out, And this is not something you need to do every time, but this first initial setup, you do need to really make sure that that port is well flooded. So if you remember when I first was running the action on the gun and I said I had to push the hammer forward, it was fighting me. It was the hand. The hand is still catching a little bit. So I have some choices here. I could take it out and file it some more, but it feels pretty close to me. So what I'm going to do is literally just work it in. Okay, one more area to check with your file while we're here is right here on the back of the hammer. Every once in a while you can have a little bit of a burr. I just did. And what can happen is as that hammer's going back, it wants to grab on the frame corners right there. Don't file the frame. Just take your file and just do a few, like literally 3 passes on the hammer, and that'll free that up real nice. I went ahead and put my bolt back in, and just so you guys know, this bolt, it's got this, oh, where's my good pointer? It's got this little space in between it right here, right? That's meant to be pinched together a little bit and be captured in this channel right here in between the hammer and the frame, just so you know. So the bolt's in there, good to go there. I am going to just put a little bit of oil right there. Then here I can go ahead and capture the bolt with that screw. Boom, the threads grab, and just a little ooch. Next is my trigger. Same story here with the grease. I want to grease this sear interface portion up. Particularly, this has been helpful to me to grease this part up because this part likes to get caked. And when you got a heavy bit of grease on there, like I said, it keeps that thing rocking and rolling for an afternoon of shooting. That screw goes in there. Okay. And threads grab and ooch. Just a little one. Now at this point, what I want to do is I want to drop a little bit of oil on the screw so that the hole that's in the trigger, that's acting like, you know, that's the pivot point for the trigger, right? And the same thing for the bolt. I want to put some oil on top of those. And this one here, again, I want some grease on the contact surfaces. And the contact surfaces of the spring are going to be the tip of the long one right there, and then the bow of the short one, which is the bottom of this bent portion right there. Doesn't take much, but just enough to say, like, okay, it's there. Okay, and that goes in like that. The long spring contacts on the trigger. It's the trigger return spring. The short side is on the bolt. Now, here's the deal. Technically, this screw only needs to be tight enough for the frame to go on the bottom here. I personally bottom it out, but I don't over tighten it. So I'm going to keep going, and here's why. You're increasing spring tension on the bolt and on the trigger by tightening that screw down. And I do want good tension, so I'm going to tighten it all the way down. Okay, it stopped, and I'm going to stop. I'm not going to give it the extra ooch. Okay, so I'm going to just test out. Yep, my trigger's working. Stick my finger in there. The bolt's working. Happy days. So far, so good. I'm not really seeing a whole lot of need to do a ton of tuning right now. So the next thing I'm going to do is take my trigger guard. Now, there's a lot of different ways to do this. The way I do it is you can see my spring is still captured, but it's loose. Okay? And I am going to put a little grease in this pocket right there. And really, here's all I do. So you can see I can kind of like pinch it closed. Okay, so all I'm going to do is get everything started. I'm just starting the screws. And really, what I don't want to do in this process right now is have the screws do the work of pulling things together. As much as I can, I'm going to pull everything together. And then the screws are going to tighten down the slack that I'm pulling. Okay, so right now you can see it's still loose, but see if I push it together, then it springs back open. So I'm going to be the one to actually mash that closed and then tighten the screws down behind it. And this is me just trying to protect the threads. I'm really trying to guard the threads on this gun as much as possible. And here's the question again. How tight do I tighten the screws? Okay, I found the threads. Ooch. Just a little oomph. You got to remember, guys, these screws, they literally need to be just hand tight. I mean, just enough to say you hand tightened them, and they hold up extremely well. Even if they're a little loose throughout a day of shooting, they don't come out, right? Have I had it happen where, you put a screwdriver on there and you kind of go, oh, that's a little loose? Yeah, sure, but that's why in your field kit, you got a Pedersoli nipple wrench that has the properly sized screwdriver where you can reach it in there and just give it a little ooch closed. No big deal. What is a big deal is absolutely destroying the threads on your gun or destroying the screw head. Boy, that is, it's frustrating. I've done it. All right, next step in the process is we're going to tighten down this hammer spring. Okay, found the thread mark and ooch. All right. So far, so good. Now, this part's really important, okay? So all we're going to do is set our back strap and grip, set it up. Once it's on there, I push right here, push that forward, make sure that grip's set in the back strap really well, and just make sure it's like hand pushed together as much as possible. And then the first screw I want to start is the one on the bottom, because I don't want to try to thread this when it's under pressure. Okay, so I've got that in about 5 turns. Then I'm going to start these guys in the back. Okay, so now that I've got these, it's not fully tight. You can see there's a gap there. I'm creeping up on them, right? I'm starting to tighten it up nice and slow. Now at this point, before I bottom out right here, I'm going to go ahead, come back to the bottom guy, and I'm going to tighten him all the way up. Here's why. I would rather have 2 screws pulling everything together than 1 screw. That's a lot of pressure on that little screw. And let me tell you, if you're ever going to strip out a screw on one of these guns, that'll be the first one. I guarantee it. Have a couple of these on standby. And if you think that screw is close to getting stripped out, throw it in the garbage and put in a new one. Don't mess with it, man. Okay, so this one, same deal. I found the thread wall and a little ooch, especially since we're screwing into brass. I don't want to strip that brass out. Okay, and then I'm going to finish these guys off. And take turns. Go like 2 turns. Okay, it's tight. Come back to the other guy. Couple turns. Come back to the other guy. Okay, now I've hit the wall. And I've hit the wall. Stop. Okay, hand tight. That's enough. All right, now we're going to take our bore butter and grease the arbor. Make sure it's really covered. We want this stuff everywhere. And believe me, the first couple shots, this stuff is going to melt and dissipate and do everything it's supposed to do, but don't be shy about it. And I also like to take some bore butter and get on these little notches where the hand is going to rotate the cylinder. Just make sure they've got something to lubricate. You're not bare metal on bare metal. Now, something to keep an eye on is as we start working the action in, you could start to develop burrs on those little fingers there. And that's normal. It's just the gun wearing into itself. However, you got to keep an eye on it because you do want to knock down burrs as they develop. So far, this gun has gone together really nicely. I mean, I'm not feeling anything weird yet. Oh, yeah. 4 clicks, nice and clean. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have taken the gun apart. We have gotten all the old brown stock oil off of it. We have deburred what we caught so far, lubricated the internals up, put it back together. Now the next step is to start wearing it in. And that's not with shooting. It's just with running the action and feeling it out. Now the action feels right now excellent. Feels super buttery. I mean, there's a little bit of grit on the back end, But this is where, just like so many things with any type of gunsmithing, guys, you don't want to just hog everything away till it feels better, because then once you start wearing the gun, it's going to wear further. So when you want to get everything to 95% and then wear it naturally that last 5. But so far, this trigger, this action feels excellent. So another thing we want to check for is the spacing between the cylinder face and the forcing cone. And essentially, this wedge is fit how I like them. So basically, when you push them out as far as they'll go till they catch on that little notch, it's loose. And then I can push it in. I got a little bit more room. So there's this like little bit of wiggle room where it's not super tight, right? Really what you want is that little notch right there that keeps the wedge from flying out the other side. You want it to just be resting on that guy as you start. You don't want to push the wedge in and like knock it in with a hammer, because what that does is it's driving this whole barrel assembly to the rear and against the cylinder face. And so with this wedge pushed out till it's on the reference notch, I'm just going to hold this up to the light, and I want to make sure that I can see some sort of gap between the forcing cone and the cylinder. And I've got a really good gap on this one. Now the next thing I want to do is push that wedge in as far as I can, just hand tight, look at it in the light again. And perfectly, that forcing cone is bottomed out on the face of the cylinder. So that means I have play in the tolerance and the head spacing on this revolver, and that's the way you want it. You don't want it too far either way. Now let's check the timing. And this is a Blackie Thomas thing. I give him full credit. So you're going to run the action real slow, clean, and then run it fast. Good. The gun is timed right. Now the other thing I'm looking out for is as I'm running the action, I want to watch out and see if burrs are developing on the bolt notches on the cylinder. What that means is that there's some burrs on the bolt and it needs to be profiled a little bit better. Right now this is a little gritty, just a little, but I'm not seeing scratches develop, and they would happen quickly. Okay, that bolt is really prominent. See, look at there, it just started smoothing up. I am going to go ahead and pull this off and just visualize that bolt now that I've run it a little bit. Okay, I don't feel any burrs, but I am going to go ahead and put a big blop of boar butter on there. See if that helps it out a little bit. Okay, and also while we're here, I'm going to just look. I don't see any burrs developing. Oop, found one. All right, so a little bit of a burr, but look, I don't want to go chasing these down just yet because the gun needs time. You need to keep working it in and see how it goes, because remember, whatever metal you take off, you can't put back. You're just going to have to replace that part. This is also a good opportunity. All of the visual surfaces, go ahead and lube them with boar butter. Boar butter is a magic product. And there's all sorts of different ones, these natural lubes. There's the Traditions Easy Lube, I think it is. And but this stuff is fantastic, man. It is really good stuff. Okay, and again, I'm just feeling it out. I'm making sure the grip, the wood is not loose. Everything's nice and tight. Still really smooth. And getting smoother by the pull. This is a good one so far. I mean, you really got to shoot these to know if you got a good one. But so far, this is one of the easier setups I've done on one of these Ubertis. So at this point, guys, I do want to say, I know this is a long video, but it's a long process. And those of you who really care about setting your guns up right, if you've made it this far, I appreciate you watching. Really, that's it. Now we're set up. And really what we need to do is just sit on the couch, put on your favorite Western, and keep running the action. Now, what I recommend is don't dry fire it, because that's going to damage the nipples. And there will be another video where we'll go out and we'll shoot it for the first time, and you'll get to see the initial firing, what are the things you got to do first. But for now, you're set up. And now what you need to do is just keep running that action and wear it in. So there we go, guys. I'll stop it there. This is a long video, but it's a long process, so I really hope that helped you guys out if you're just getting into the black powder games. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments, and if I missed anything, I'm sure I did, please let me know in the comments as well. So till next time, my friends, we'll see you.